Talking Music with Big Andy. Hello, welcome to another episode of Talking Music with Big Andy, and I have with me today Grace Hayhurst. Hello.
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 Oh, there we go.
Now, you're from South London, aren't you?
Originally, yeah, I grew up in South London, and then about a year ago moved to Reading, which is crazy because now I run a studio in North London. So yes, the commute is horrible. Thank you for asking.
But yes, you moved from South London to Reading to work in North London.
Yeah, basically, not very smart. I'll hold my hands up and say, not the greatest decision ever. But my partner, it's the move with my partner basically. So that's kind of, it's like, well, fair enough then. I can't complain too much.
Now, online it says you're a multi-instrumentalist, and
it does.
You were originally classically trained to play piano, French horn, and then you learnt to play the guitar and bass by yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can talk a bit about that.
What prompted the change from the classical side to the sort of more rock side of things?
Good question. I grew up going through the grades, so to say. In the UK, there's like a grade system, basically just like a series of exams that it's like, right, okay, you're grade 3 at this. Okay, right, okay. And that kind of like sets an expectation of maybe how much you learn on a certain instrument. And there's slightly different exam boards. Some are allegedly harder than others. I was told, at least. I don't know the ins and outs. So I started grades in piano. And then when my baby teeth were gone, I started learning French horn. Because apparently learning them on your baby teeth is kind of quite bad, because then the embouchure of your mouth, which embouchure is a fancy word for the shape, changes. So you kind of don't want to do it with one set of teeth and then lose them and then do it with another set of teeth, which actually did end up happening to me later in life because some of my front teeth are fake. But there you go. So yeah, I was kind of down those pipelines. I did ABRSM for piano and Trinity Guildhall for French horn. Both are very sort of traditional, here's your sonata, here's your allegro, and here's your modern piece, which typically wouldn't date past about 1940. And it would be like some Debussy or some early jazz, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So the harmonic complexities of it was quite simplistic compared to, I guess, what we know now with the world of rock and roll. So that was my instrumental life really for a long time. And in the background, as I was kind of getting older, I was like, well, yeah, I do actually really enjoy some of this rock and metal stuff. I was really getting into my Metallicas, my Foo Fighters, my Green Day, all of those kind of like traditional big rock bands that were about in the 2000s. And I got to a point where I started my own band. I had an indie band when I was like 16, and we were writing some songs and putting stuff together, and I was playing keyboard. But I kind of realized I didn't quite know what I was doing, in the sense of like I could play the notes and fit them in, but what if we wanted like a slightly different noise or something? And my experience of what noise kind of was piano, harpsichord,
Yeah.
organ, and that was kind of like as far as it went. And I kind of rode with that for a bit, and then ended up leaving school, dropping out, and I was kind of like. And at that point, I was getting into a far wider range of music. It was about when I was 15, 16, where I discovered Opeth and bands like Sabaton and Elstorm, all of the heavier metal stuff, rather than just the sort of the big names, so to say. And I was like, oh man, this stuff's great! Like, wow, all this prog rock in my ears, like this Yes, this Rush, Dream Theater. Yeah, it's fantastic. I'd love to make music like that, but I can't, because I only really know how to play, a Beethoven minuet in G or whatever. So it's like, maybe I should do. So when I was 17, around 17, I met up with a dodgy bloke in Camden that gave me a guitar for £15. And it was awful. And about a year later, I got a proper guitar. I got an Ibanez with a Floyd Rose and all of this stuff. And by that point, I'd started working as well. So I dropped out of school, so I had a little bit of money, and I was like, right, okay, let's go. Like, let's give this a whirl. And I picked up guitar. I think I got a bass. That was old. I hate it at the time, but I think it was just because I got a terrible instrument. And yeah, that was literally it. It was like, I want to make music that I want to listen to rather than music that I know how to listen to. Right. So I kind of spread off and then started getting into synthesis and stuff. And I was learning guitar in the background for a while. And it wasn't until the big sort of pandemic hit and I was locked inside for about a year and a half, 2 years, because I was shielding even more than probably your average person because of my granddad. He's a very old guy, very vulnerable, lots of health problems, and it was all kind of like I was visiting him quite regularly, trying to just keep an eye on him, cooking him food and that kind of thing every now and then. So it was like, right, okay, well, that's, I'm going to make sure he's all right. I don't care about myself, but yeah. I'll make sure he's all right. What am I going to do? I have all this free time. I got furloughed from my job. I was twiddling thumbs. So to that point, I was like, right, okay, if I don't actually down and learn how to do all this now, I'm never, ever going to do it, because I'm never going to have more time than I do in this moment, where it's like, I can't go to the pub, I can't go outside, I can't go to a restaurant, I can't see my friends, I can't do more than my mandated 30 minutes of walking per day or whatever it was, right? So I've got to do it now. And that's when I started piecing together more of the synthesis stuff. I actually worked with Diego Tejeda for a little bit from Hayhurst. Picked up some lessons from him on synthesis, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, man. Like, could you just give me some pointers, please? And that kind of built up that area of things. So yeah, it was an act of necessity, I guess. But now I really love playing guitar. So yeah,
I was interested when I was looking at your different places online. Some places say about you playing prog metal, which I don't quite know what that is, but one of them said about you playing sludge metal, and I'm not sure I know what that is either.
I think it was kind of, with my first EP, I was quite inspired and influenced by a guitarist called Rabir Massad, who played in a band called Tosca, and I also really liked Mastodon, and I was trying to channel this, like, because that EP was instrumental, I was trying to sort of channel a riffy energy, and I think maybe the PR person at the time was like, yeah, maybe let's use this word, and I was like, yeah, sure, okay, and not much thought went into it. But I think progressive metal is probably more a better umbrella for me to sit under, especially with the new stuff that's like coming, because then it is progressive in the sense that there's a string quartet, right, and then suddenly there's a electronic bit, and then we're back to distorted guitars and back to a French horn solo. So there's kind of that raw variety show of things going on.
The first video of yours that I saw was I'm in a battle with my brain, against my brain, sorry. which it's very interesting, especially I have suffered from mental health problems for a long time, and I kind of relate to some of the stuff to that kind of idea. So was that a kind of personal thing about your own
Yeah,
mental health or anything,
in short, yes. It was kind of I guess not quite a defeatist attitude. That's not very fair, but almost I feel like I've hit an acceptance now in my life where, I mean, the reason why I left school early when I was like 16, 17 was because I was just like not well in myself. I was being kind of not necessarily horrible to people around me, but definitely was being unfair, I'd say, like at a minimum. I've never really spoken to those people again, but yeah, I wasn't being a reasonable person. I was very out of sorts. And while I've never been like that again since, I've definitely had moments where I've just, woken up and just been like, oh, it's happening again. And I'll, be out of for 2 or 3 days, I guess, where I just can't engage with anything around me. And I'll bury myself at home in a duvet or whatever. I won't talk to anyone. I won't like engage with anything. I won't do anything. I'll cancel any of my plans. And that feeling can kind of come on quite suddenly, and it can go away quite suddenly. The worst I've had is it lasting like over a week, and it probably happens like multiple times a year. I think I know what it is, but I also don't. And it's like I've just gotten to the point now where, or at least when I wrote that song, where it was like, okay, this thing's just going to keep happening, and it kind of sucks. But I do know that it is just for a few days. I kind of know what to do now to look after myself so I don't fall off even worse. Like I used to like just not eat or not drink and just like punish myself. And it's like, okay, well, let's maybe not like do that. Let's like try and look after myself a little bit. So yeah, no, it's very real for me.
Do you find that the music and creating music helps you with that?
Yeah, I think it gives me a reason to get out of bed, so to say. I mean, my life this last year has changed like very dramatically. I feel like both professionally and like how I spend my time, I am busier than I have ever been, and I was already pretty busy. Filling every hour of the day with something. But it's all for kind of the common end goal in my head that, for better or for worse, I hope that after I die, there's something still there. It's not. I know a lot of people in my life that I've seen either pass away or are still alive, that have kind of got to a stage in their life and, not immediately, but 10, 20 years down the line when, their friends pass away or whatever, that's kind of it. There's not anything else left for people to latch onto. And it's futile, right? Because, okay, yeah, sure, maybe I'll sell a few records and maybe a handful of people will be like, well, you should listen to this person because, they'll pass it on to their kids or whatever. But that's kind of a pipe dream. I write very silly music. It's kind of like, in my mind, it's like, yeah, okay, well, maybe I'll last a bit longer than I'm supposed to. You know, I'll stick around a bit longer. You know, I'm never going to be like Paul McCartney. Like, that's ridiculous. Spark, where kids and still studying him 400 years later. But you know, maybe there'll be a bit of longevity. Maybe I'll, you know, do something that makes people feel better. I don't know. I don't really know.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely. I do. You put an EP out of just purely instrumental music. Was Existence is Temporary? Is that
Yeah.
the EP? That track itself, I really like. By the way, I really like that. The whole EP is very interesting. Was it kind of? I'm just interested why you put out an EP that was purely instrumental. Was there a reason for that, or was it just simply because you didn't have anyone to sing?
There's a few reasons, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to work within my own abilities. So, from a kind of, I guess, from a lift the curtain point of view, that EP was almost like an experiment. It was like, right, okay, what do I need to get together to release music? What does that look like? How do I get it on Spotify? How do I market it? Who does the artwork? How do I make a music video? Who's going to mix it? Who's going to master it? And it was sort of an educational tool for me to work out how that whole process works. Who I wanted to work with, for example, who did a great job and who let me down. You know, like for my upcoming record that I'm working on, I'm using the same artist again that did all the artwork because she did a great job, and I keep getting compliments about it. I'm like, yeah, thank you. I didn't make it; this other person did, but you know, go and send them a nice message. So it was kind of an experiment in that, and I didn't want to make it too complicated, partly because I wasn't as good a guitar player. You know, I still regularly have guitar lessons and take exams and that kind of stuff to try and be a better musician. But I wasn't a singer. I still don't really consider myself a singer, to be honest. And at that point, I was again at home. All of that record was recorded in an untreated room. So trying to do sing vocals in that room, it would have sounded pretty awful. Let alone like my bad singing. You know, I've been having singing lessons for the last couple of years since then, right? Now that I'm able to. So it's like, while I'm not still don't really consider myself a singer, I would say I'm less bad than I was when I was writing that. And I also have the facility to record. You know, I have a nice microphone and a nice studio to be able to get a good result and also make a lot of mistakes as well. Because that pressure, you know, for the Battle single, I hired out a studio for a day to do that, and the pressure was quite intense. I actually recorded the vocals for it twice because the first time around I hated it, and I said, "No, we've got to redo it. We've got to start again." We started the whole process from scratch, which is, you know, a bold thing to do. But so yeah, it was kind of a lack of resource, a lack of like confidence, I think, as well, which is still there. But the issue I have is like I'm writing for under my own name. If I was writing for a band, yeah, someone else could do that. I don't care. But as it's under my name, and it's like I wrote the songs, and it's like I demoed them out. I sung, you know, rough takes of. I'm just like, I can't hear anyone else's voice there, and I think if I didn't try to do it myself, you know, even though it would almost definitely be better if someone else did it, you know, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, there was a couple of other tracks that I listened to rather than watching the videos. One of them was "Death Is Final," which again I really like. I really like your sound. There's something about your sound. I just like it, and I don't know. I'm never quite sure what it is when I listen to new stuff, and I sort of go, "Oh, that's good." But I really like the sound, and that track "Death Is Final" I really liked as well. And the next video I watched that I liked was called "The Search for Purpose."
Yes, yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know, that's quite a deep sort of philosophical concept for a title.
Yeah, I mean the EP started off as like just the collection of riffs and like motifs that I was starting to string together. And it wasn't until very late in the process where I was like, oh, wait, there's like, could there be a story in this? Because is there a narrative that I should like retrospectively or retroactively just like push onto all of what I've written? And I was like, well, hang on, if I put this bit here and this bit there. And so there was actually a concept, which was sort of, this idea of like, where am I? It was waking up in hospital, like I don't know what's going on, like I'm not well, I don't know what's happening, negative incline. The track title, I'm getting worse, I don't know what's happening, the search for purpose, what am I doing here? What's going on? Who knows? And then there's the title track, Existence is Temporary, where I was like, right, okay, I'll get my friend Jonah to do some narration, write some words that sort of explain it a little bit. It's what am I doing here? What happens after I'm gone? What's left behind? And Death is Final has some vocal clips in it as well from basically a bunch of friends of mine. It's not, some people are musicians in bands, like Harrison White is in there, who did keyboards for Leprous, which is like crazy. But then some of them are just like old friends of mine. And it was this idea of like, after I'm dead, like, does anyone even remember me? Who knows? I don't know. So that was kind of the framing. So yeah, it is quite like morbid. It's not, oh no, like I'm in love with a girl and oh no, she's like sleeping with another boy. Uh-oh, what am I going to do about it? Uh-oh, I'll take some MDMA. Like, like a lot of pop music is, I feel like these days. It's utterly miserable and depressing. So, everyone's welcome for that.
No, it's I mean, the thing about it is the fact that although you've got these kind of deep, as I say, philosophical kind of concepts and issues within the titles, within the meanings of the songs, if you like, and where they came from, the actual music itself doesn't sound depressing and sort of it's kind of, it's just really good music. It's
well, there you go. Thank you.
That's right. So okay, have you been out playing gigs, doing the songs and the newer stuff that you've done?
A little bit. It's a little smidge, yeah. I did when it was still sort of deep-ish COVID times. I did a couple of online festivals, which were sort of like live streamed, and I can't think what the viewer count on it, but it was like a few hundred people watching. That was pretty cool, but it was also all pre-recorded. So like we went into a room or a studio or a venue and basically took a bunch of equipment, recorded it, edited, took the best version of each song, and that was the one that went up and that kind of thing. So I did that a couple of times. So that was a good experience, I think, for me to kind of dry run performing my own music live. because I've done a gazillion concerts growing up in the context of orchestral music.
Yeah.
So I've played symphonies and like concert band, and I've done stuff in a wind quintet, Dixieland jazz band, and a brass band, and like all of this like other random stuff, which is like totally not the same as bringing a bunch of electronics to a venue and hoping that it all plugs in correctly.
Yeah.
Utterly terrifying experience versus just bringing my French horn, and then if I make a mistake, well, it doesn't matter. Horn players, I can just be like, it was in. Yeah, very terrifying. I definitely never did that. Yeah, like it's quite terrifying. So those were some good warm-ups to make sure, because I had to buy a lot of equipment. You can't just, I say these days, you can't just play a live show. You can, but for me at least, I had stuff on backing tracks. You know, I was talking to my drummer, and it was like, you want to do stuff to click, which just seems to be very standard. And it's like, right, okay, well, and we want in-ear monitoring rather than wedges on stage, because we're not going to have much space on stage anymore because stages are tiny. So it's like, right, okay, so I've got to wire in all of this stuff, all of this equipment. It was thousands to set it all up.
Yeah.
And it's quite precarious as well, because you're trying to play on stage. In the back of your mind, you're like, oh, I hope this thing works. And when it came to actually taking all of that equipment out onto the road, I'd done 3 or 4 gigs now in the flesh, in the real world. And it's terrifying because stuff did go wrong. I played my first show in London, and that was great. I was looking around. I had an audience of friends, basically, and some strangers as well. And I was like, wow, this is really cool, though. It's like all these people have come that I know, and like friends I've not seen for years. Like, this is great. But at the same time, I'm like, oh crap, we've got 5 minutes to get everything like ready. And then I get on stage, and the very first, was Where Am I? And right at the start of that is a very clean guitar sound, very subtle, very sort of, musical. And the patch changes for my core cortex weren't working. So what happened when I struck my guitar was very, very, very heavy distortion. And I was just like, I was trying to like keep a straight face. And I almost was like, I'm going to cry. Like, I'm actually going to cry right now. This is a disaster. And I was thinking on the spot, the wireless thing wasn't working. It kept disconnecting. So the note was like stuttering as well. And I was like, oh man, this is diabolical. And then I sort of coped in my head of like, right, well, basically all the rest of this is like heavy distorted. This is like the only clean section. So actually, if the patch change is not working, it's fine. I won't sound as good. But it's fine. And literally all that happened, just a cable just pulled out the back of it, and that was it. Simple as that.
It is. So sometimes it is such a simple little thing that kind of like messes everything up.
Yeah. But obviously I didn't have a stage tech. I didn't have my own mixing engineer or anything like that, right? I'm not like some big showbiz musician. So it's just like, well, that's just how it is. Unless I stop the show and like 5 minutes go into the back of my cube of equipment and try and work out what's gone on, because it could have been anything. We're sat on the stage in silence, and I've only got like a 25-minute slot.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't overrun because it's the first band of the night. So it's quite challenging.
No, but yeah, I think it's good. It's still a thing, though. I mean, I've done it myself, and I don't think there's anything that quite equals the same feeling as playing live on stage and getting that immediate reaction from the audience to what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, I've not played an orchestral concert before, I think since like 2018 now, and I miss it so much. And yeah, coming back to being on a stage, albeit smaller audiences, it was way more terrifying because it was my own sort of music, but also way more satisfying as well when things did go right. And when you sit at the merch desk afterwards and strangers come up to you and go, wow, that's great. I'm like, really? That's what you took away from this? Wow. Well, I must have done something not too bad then. And that, a lot of the show I did in the middle of this year in London at 229, I was playing with a band called Fractions, who are really cool. Very jazzy, sort of instrumental prog-ish trio. And I had at least 3 or 4 people come up to me. Can I buy this? I'm going to give this to my daughter. She needs a strong female role model, and I think you're it. And I was like, I've just been like throwing fake blood around on my bandmates and like waving like a brain and like all of this stuff around. And look, man, I'm not the parent here. Good luck. Like, I'm not gonna. If you want to buy this album, I'm not gonna complain. You know, I pay everyone I work with. The joys of being a solo artist as well. You know, and doing live shows. It's like I just would feel awful asking people to do stuff for me for free in that context, because it's not just you're on stage for 20 minutes. It's you have to learn all of the material and go to rehearsals and get there. And so
no, I get it.
Yeah, it's.
Looking for the future, what do you have anything lined up in the near future for more music or more gigs or anything like that?
I do, yeah. I've been working on an album for maybe 3 years, 3.5 years, something like that. I recorded all of the drums for it in January 2022. So that was when the album was written. That was when it was finished. All the structure was done. And I've just been filling in all the gaps since then. And it takes a lot longer to work with 50 minutes of music as opposed to 25 minutes of music or even 20 minutes of music, especially when it's way more elaborate and complex, because I've chucked in so much more, like recording live acoustic piano and using a lot more acoustic instruments, recording a lot more hand percussion, recording French horn. I've been scoring for string quartets. I've been like recording harp. I've been doing vocals and backing vocals and all of this stuff. And the logistics of it all is like so much more elaborate. You know, I think Battle Against My Brain took from me writing the first notes to it being like a single that's now out. It was probably about 8 months of work, I think, on just that one song. So it's a journey, but I'm finally at a position where I'm like, no, it's definitely happening next year. Even though I've been saying that for the last 2 years, but everything is like done now. Everything is recorded for once. And the thing is, it was supposed to happen last year, but then a mate of mine was like, "Oh, do you want to start a recording studio?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, all right then. I need a recording studio because, like, you know, and it's kind of where I come from a little bit, in that I've worked in sort of tech for a long time." I was like, "Yeah, sure. How like long can that take to put together? I'll just wait until that's done and then record all the bits I need to do." And the process of that took about 10 months or a year or so before I was actually able to. So that would like slow the whole thing down, like unintentionally. But it's definitely better in the long run, for sure.
So that's going to be coming out
So
next year, hopefully.
yeah. I mean, I'm in the post-production phase now for music videos. So the video it's myself, in theory. See how that's going. It's going okay so far.
So
So yeah, we're kind of in a post-production
will
area.
you be doing sort of gigs off the back of that?
I would like to, but it's one of those things. It's very chicken and egg where I'm in a situation where, yeah, okay, like quite a few people maybe know who I am through various contexts. I know a lot of bands and musicians and this kind of stuff because I've done music journalism for a little while. So I've been around, the green rooms, and I've been on, worked crew with bands and all this kind of stuff. So I have got a lot of good connections of people that I know I'd love to do shows with. But I don't quite have the draw because obviously it's chicken and egg, right? This is a debut album. Who knows? I could be the next Sleep Token. Probably not. But yeah, there's got to be some sort of meat and potatoes to the whole thing, and at the moment there's kind of not. So I'm kind of putting everything I can into this, and we'll see where it goes, and hopefully something off the back of that. But I don't have an agent. I don't have a manager. I'm not on a label. There's kind of no one else rooting for me in any particular corner. It's all kind of down to me to put it all together. So I've just not had the headspace to sort of shoot my shot, I guess, to try and organize stuff like that. Even though I really want to. Like that's the whole point of this.
Do you have any kind of long-term plan or goals that you'd like to achieve, or is it just a matter of playing everything by ear and see how it goes?
I think all you can do is see how it goes. I know there's certain festivals I'd love to play. I'd love to, go on a proper tour with a tour bus. That'd be fun. Just play some shows. I mean, I guess my aspirations are very mediocre comparatively right now because there's no point being like, right, I want to headline Wembley by the end of next year. It's like, yeah, that's never going to happen, right? Be realistic. It would be nice if I could play a couple of dates next year, maybe festivals, maybe whatever. Nothing mega, I'm not going to headline Download or anything like that, but there's a lot smaller prog festivals that happen in the UK that I'd like to play and just sort of get my foot in the door and just be like, hi, this is what I do. If you like it, that's cool. There's sort of more medium-sized festivals I'd love to play as well. But again, I know how these things work. They're booked out a year in advance. There's festivals I'd love to play in a year. And even though, let's say the album comes out in March, April time, before festival season, most of those festivals already have their lineups booked up. They're booking for 2026 already. So it's
not easy.
Yeah, so hopefully things will get easier when it comes to album 2. It's like, well, look, this is what happened the first time.
Yeah.
Can we kind of have a handshake agreement that I'm going to have done something by the time this next date rolls around?
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show.
All
I have enjoyed listening to your music. I've enjoyed talking to you. I look forward to hearing the album and hopefully at some point being able to see you live. To anybody out there who's listening and watching, have a look at Grace Hayhurst stuff. I will, as I always do, put links up to social media and to the YouTube channel and everything like that so that you can get a better idea of what she does and keep an eye out for when she's playing live and when new stuff's coming out. So thank you very much. And we'll see you again. Bye.
Bye.